respectful of your time. But first of all, I just want to thank you for joining us for tonight's webinar that will talk about both the financial aid as well as the merit-based scholarship process. For those of you who have been exploring Providence for some time and maybe are in the later parts of your college search, getting ready to submit a common application and begin the aid process, you've likely kind of explored and seen the great opportunities that exist and how Providence is a worthwhile investment that benefits students for years beyond their time on our campus. But we certainly recognize that the initial price tag can be something that can cause pause and concern, and something that for many families they need assistance with. And so today we'll talk a little bit more about the process of accessing the resources that are available at Providence, as well as managing the costs that come with that investment, as well as the way that at Providence we recognize the academic achievement of members of our applicant pool through our merit-based scholarship program. I'm thrilled to be joined this evening by one of my colleagues, Emily, from the Office of Financial Aid. As I begin, I also want to introduce myself. My name is Owen Bly. I'm the Dean of Admission here at Providence College, and I'll rejoin this webinar in a little while to talk about the merit-based scholarship program. But at this point, I'll turn it over to Emily, who will share much of her expertise about the financial aid process.
Thanks, Owen. Welcome, everyone. My name is Emily Prevey, and I am one of the Associate Directors in the Office of Financial Aid here at Providence College. I have been a part of the FIRE family for about 18 years, and I'm happy you've decided to join us tonight as you kick off your college application process. I do have a lot of material to cover, so let's move right into the next slide and take a look at tonight's agenda. Going through this material will take me about 20, maybe 25 minutes. I will go over what applications are needed and when they are due. I will explain how financial need is calculated and what types of aid are available. Next, I will show you our award letter and how to use it to compare offers across institutions. Owen will then talk about our merit scholarship program, and then I will wrap it up with tips, advice, and questions from you all. Feel free to enter your questions into the chat box as you think of them. If we can answer them as we go along, we will. If not, we will definitely get to them all at the end. And with that, let's move right into the next slide. I look forward to filling out the FAFSA form, said no one ever. I am sure many of you out there can relate to this. I understand that nobody really wants to complete the FAFSA, but completing your aid applications is really important. I know it won't be as exciting as seeing the inside of a dorm or learning about our newest nursing major, but completing this step is important and will help you make a good financial choice for next year. All right, let's just dive right into the next slide. Okay, so here they are, FAFSA and CSS profile. Now, it is possible that a school has their own internal application for you to complete. It's not that common anymore, but I just wanted to throw that out there just in case. Also, some schools will collect information from your non-custodial parent to determine your eligibility. Just so you know, Providence College is not one of those schools at this time. So FAFSA is for all schools, but the profile is just for some schools, mostly private institutions. When you complete these applications, make sure you complete the 2024-2025 versions. And these applications will be based on your tax information from the year 2022. So yep, that's right. The forms are based on the taxes that you just completed this past spring. Make sure you keep track of where they are stored in your house. Or if you use a software system like TurboTax, print them out now and keep them in a place you will remember. In addition to personal taxes, some schools collect business tax returns. Business tax returns include corporations or partnerships, also known as 1065s or 1120Ss. Business taxes can also include sole proprietorships, which are also known as a Schedule C, which would be found in your personal tax return. Parents forget about this type of business tax return because they don't consider it a business, as it's not their main source of income. But if you are an Uber driver or a soccer referee, it's still considered a single owner business. I'm mentioning this here because Providence College is one of those schools that collects business tax return. FAFSA is not available until December, but CSS Profile opened on October 1st and you can complete it right now. The FAFSA is delayed this year only. It was pushed to December so the Department of Education had more time to implement the changes related to FAFSA simplification. Normally, the FAFSA would have opened up on October 1st. So it's not enough to know when the forms become available. You need to know when you should complete them. So this gets just a little bit tricky. As I mentioned a few moments ago, not all schools collect the same application and not all schools have the same deadline. And schools can have multiple deadlines based on your admission application type, like early action or regular decision. For example, our early action deadline for CSS Profile is November 15th. The business tax returns are due December 1st, and the FAFSA is due February 1st. But for our regular decision application deadline, it's February 15th for FAFSA, Profile, and those business taxes. You need to research each school you're applying to and find out what applications they require and when they require them. You can do this the same time you are looking up the admission application deadline. So these are going to be a lot of dates to keep track of. Write them down, make a chart, do whatever it takes. Just do not submit them late. Late applications could mean losing out on thousands of dollars. Okay, so let's move into the next slide and dig a little bit deeper into the FAFSA. This slide covers some important things you need to know about the FAFSA. First and foremost, every single school will require the FAFSA, and it takes about 20 minutes to complete. One of the most important steps to completing your FAFSA is signing it. The FSA ID is the username and password you will need to have in order to sign this form. You will create it using your social security number, date of birth, email address, and phone number. So what does this mean? It means you should not create your FSA ID the day you sit down and do your FAFSA. Make sure you do this ahead of time. In fact, you can do it right now. Even though you cannot complete your FAFSA yet, you can create your FSA ID at any time. You will need one for your student and one for which contributor, otherwise known as a parent, information will be on the application. It is very important that you know that you cannot use the same email address or phone number when creating multiple FSA IDs. Just like your social and date of birth, the email address and phone number must also be unique. I wanted to mention that since I know a lot of families create a shared email address or create one just for the college process. Now, the website is FAFSA.gov, not FAFSA.com. That website will charge you a fee to complete the application. FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid, and you should never be charged to complete it. In order to get the FAFSA to the schools you're applying to, you will need to add their school code. Providence's school code is 003406. After you hit submit, you will get an email confirmation, and then once it's done processed, you will get another email with your FAFSA submission summary. It takes about 3 to 5 days to fully process a FAFSA application, as it sends your information to multiple third parties to authenticate your information, like the Social Security Administration database and the Department of Homeland Security. Since it does take a few days to process, you must complete the application before the deadline. If you wait and try to complete it the day it's due, the schools will definitely receive it late. And remember, late applications means possibly losing out on some money. If you can, take advantage of the direct data exchange in the FAFSA. This nifty tool helps students and contributors or parents transfer their tax information right into the FAFSA. When you get to the income section in the FAFSA, it will ask you if you want to use the DDX tool. If you say yes, it will open a new window and redirect you to the IRS, and you'll be asked a couple security questions. If you get them all right, the tax information loads right into the FAFSA. This will reduce errors and the likelihood of you being selected for a process called verification, as long as you don't change any of the information after it imports. Being selected for verification can be random, or federal student aid thinks that you might have made an error. In either case, the school will reach out, will collect information from you, probably some tax stuff, resolve any errors, and make sure you get the most possible aid. All right, Let's move into the next slide and dig a little bit deeper into the CSS profile. Okay, so this slide covers some important things you need to know about the profile. The website is displayed on the slide and it may look a little familiar to you. The CSS profile is offered by the College Board, which is the same company that offers the SATs. Since you have or your student will take the SATs, hang on to their username and password because you will need it to log in and complete the CSS profile. Unlike the FAFSA, CSS profile is not free. The cost for the initial application and to send it to one school is $25. Each additional school after that will cost you $16 a piece. The CSS profile application fee will be waived for families with an adjusted gross income less than $100,000. They will make that determination from your 2022 federal income tax returns. Keep in mind, unlike the FAFSA, not every school requires the profile. And again, in general, it's just private colleges that collect this form. This application is longer and a bit more detailed. It could take about 40 minutes to complete, as it asks you for your 2022 tax information, but also will ask you about your business, your investments for everybody in the household, your other real estate, the home you live in, and who lives in your household, just to name a few differences between the applications. If you use our school code 3693, when you complete your profile, it will electronically be sent to our office. Again, since it can take several days to reach schools after you submit it, make sure you complete the application before the deadline. If you wait and complete it the day it is due, schools again will receive it late. IDOC, Institutional Documentation Service, also known as IDOC, is a service that collects financial documents from you and sends them to the schools you are applying to. This is not the same as the CSS profile. IDOC is more like a portal where you upload your information, and from there, it is sent to all the schools you apply to. Schools have to pay to have this service, and not all schools will do it. Providence College is not a school that participates with IDOC. We ask that families send documents like taxes directly to us. We are working on our own secure portal and will make an announcement when it becomes available. Make sure you know whether or not a school participates with IDOC. If you assume something, you may miss a deadline and lose out on some money. All right, now that you know a little bit more about the FAFSA and the CSS profile, let's move into the next slide and talk about what these applications tell us. Okay, on the left-hand side of the slide, you see cost of attendance. Cost of attendance is made up of direct and indirect costs. Direct costs are things like tuition, fees, room and board, things that you'll see on your bill. Indirect costs are like books, transportation, personal expenses, things are not on your bill, but you still pay for. The cost of attendance is sometimes called sticker price or the true cost of a college for 1 year. In the middle of the slide is SAI and institutional family contribution. The SAI, or Student Aid Index, helps us determine your Pell Grant and other federal eligibility. The index number comes from the information you provide on your FAFSA. The SAI replaces what used to be known as the expected family contribution. And your institutional family contribution is calculated from your CSS profile and represents your family's financial strength. College Board delivers your information as is, and schools independently analyze this information and then create your institutional family contribution. So your family contribution can be different between schools. Your SAI will be the same at every school, and your family contribution may vary between schools. The SAI is really an index for Pell and other federal eligibility, while the family contribution from the CSS profile continues to assess a family's financial strength and ability to pay. Rarely will these numbers be the same. Now, we take the sticker price or the cost of attendance, subtract out your family contribution, and the result is what you need from the college in order to go there. This is called financial need. For example, if the cost of attendance at a school is $50,000 and your family contribution is $40,000, then your financial need is $10,000. Schools will then try and offer you up to $10,000 in financial resources. Sometimes schools don't have resources to meet all of your need 100%. So in those cases, the remaining amount is often referred to as the gap. I want to point out that some schools like Providence, we determine your financial need first by using the cost of attendance and subtract out your SAI from the FAFSA. We use that index and resulting financial need and offer you Pell and your federal assistance based on federal rules. Then we go back a second time and take our cost of attendance and subtract out the institutional family contribution from the CSS profile. We use that financial need and offer you the most institutional resources we can based on our policy and available resources. I'm sure some of you might have questions about this slide, so just make sure you type them into the Q&A and we will get to them at the end. And with that, I would like to move into the next slide. So let's talk a little bit more about what schools will offer you to fill your financial need. So 4 main categories: scholarships, grants, work study, and student loans. So scholarships, these are resources that do not have to be repaid. They are based on students' athletic talent or academic achievements prior to coming to the college. These resources tend to come with a contract that you must sign. If you meet the terms and conditions in the contract, that source of funding is likely to be guaranteed each year. In a few slides from now, Owen will talk more in depth about our merit-based scholarship program. The other type of scholarships are called outside scholarships because you apply and earn them prior to coming to the college. They typically are just one-time resources meant to help you transition into your first year of college. When you apply, watch out for scams and only use reputable search engines. Places like College Board, College Answer, CollegeNet, and FastWeb are examples of good online searches. There are some sites that will ask you for $500 and promise they can turn it into $5,000. I promise you pitches like that are a scam. And grants. Grants are need-based and also do not have to be repaid. However, unlike merit or athletic-based funding, this type of money is not guaranteed. If your information on FAFSA and CSS profile change from year to year, then so could the type of amount and resources you get from the college. One of the biggest influences on family contribution can be number in college. This has been talked about quite a bit since the Department of Education announced it would eliminate this consideration when calculating a family's SAI. Even though you continue to report that information on the FAFSA, the federal formula will no longer give families a break for having multiple in college. For purposes of calculating institutional resources, however, Providence College will continue to consider multiple students enrolled in undergraduate programs at the same time. Please keep in mind that when one of your students exits college or graduates, your institutional family contribution could, in some cases, double. We get a lot of questions about this, and many families are quite surprised because they don't always realize the impact that one change can have on their financial need and aid in subsequent years. Okay, let's move into work study. This is the student's opportunity to earn money to help with costs while attending school, like buying pizza on Friday night. These funds are paid directly to the student and are never applied to the bill. Students are not placed into positions, they must apply since the process is competitive. Most colleges do have enough jobs for all students that are interested. Once in a great while, we do hear from a student they cannot find a job, but it's more like the student doesn't have any interest in the jobs that might be available to them. Once hired, typically it is the financial aid office that helps students with their employment paperwork. Just like a regular job, students have to complete a W-4 and an I-9 within 3 days of starting their new job. Most jobs start at the minimum wage set by the state of Rhode Island, which right now is $13 an hour. Students and their supervisors create a schedule that works with the student's class schedule and best meets the needs of the hiring department. Students are allowed to work up to 20 hours per week, but it usually ends up being anywhere from 8 to 12. And also, because these funds, meaning work study, are meant to support a student in the year they earn them, they do not have to be reported on the FAFSA application in the following year. Last but not least are loans. Loans are a resource that you will have to repay. The full name of the loan program offered through federal student aid is the William D. Ford Federal Direct Stafford Loan Program, also just known as direct loans. In order to be considered for direct loans, all you have to do is complete the FAFSA. There are two types of direct loans, a subsidized and unsubsidized, and which one you are offered is based on whether or not you demonstrate need. And remember, financial need is determined when you take the total cost of attendance, or that sticker price, and subtract out your FAFSA SAI. So subsidized means that there is no interest that accrues on the loan while you are in school, but interest will accrue on the unsubsidized loan while you are in school. The student is the borrower and no cosigner is needed. They are automatically eligible simply because they are attending college. The official lender is the U.S. Department of Education, but there are 6 servicers nationwide that assist in the administration of the loans. Students get randomly assigned to one of those servicers, and you work with them after you graduate and enter repayment. There is additional paperwork the student must complete, and those items are entrance counseling and master promissory note. Entrance counseling is an educational tool designed to help students understand what a loan is and what it means to borrow. And the promissory note is the legal document promising that you will repay. Schools help students with this paperwork, and you do not need to find a bank on your own. The current interest rate for the direct loan program this year, meaning for 23-24, is 5.5%. We will not know the interest rate for 24-25 until next July. Okay, so we have talked about costs, SAIs, family contribution, financial need, and types of aid. So now I want to show you an example of what you might get from schools that pulls all of this together. Our next slide is actually an award letter from Providence College. I want you all to know that there is no standardized award letter across colleges. So this means there are no rules or standards that schools have to abide by when presenting this information to you. So if you apply to financial aid at 10 schools, you're going to get 10 very different looking award letters. Needless to say, it's going to be overwhelming and a bit confusing on how to read and compare them. So I'm going to focus on what key items you should be looking at so you can understand and compare them. This is the actual award letter from Providence College, and it includes many of the items we've talked about earlier. The left-hand side and the bottom of the award letter contains some of our educational information. This is kind of like the fine print and briefly explains the most important aspect of those resources. Make sure you read those items carefully so you really understand what's being offered to you. These sections will confirm for you if you are getting need-based or merit-based, if money needs to be repaid like loans or earned like work study. And I think the most important part of our award letter is the special messages section right along the bottom. This is where we try to highlight something we really want you to know about this offer. As you can see here, the message on this award letter is letting the family know that the award is based on more than one attending college. And as we learned earlier, when a student graduates, it can dramatically change the family contribution and the resulting financial need. Okay, on top in the right, you will see sticker price. Remember, this is the total cost for 1 year, and it includes things you see on your bill, like tuition fees, room and board, and things you don't see on your bill, like books, transportation, and personal expenses. Right below that is your financial aid offer comprised of grants, scholarships, and loans. Remember, this is determined by the FAFSA SAI and the institutional contribution from the profile. Subtract all of these resources from your sticker price and you get your net price. Net price is the true cost to the family for the first year. Net price is the figure that you will use to compare the financial aid offers from school to school. The lower the net price, the less expensive that school is to you and your family. So my advice is not to eliminate a school just based on sticker price alone, as you never know what you will qualify for. Remember, some schools do not meet 100% of your need. So your net price could be higher than your SAI or family contribution because it could include a gap that the school was not able to fill. I do want to highlight that the schools are required by the U.S. Department of Education to have something called a net price calculator on their website. So if you wanted to get a rough idea of your net price now for a school you're interested in, you can. But not all net price calculators are the same. The U.S. Department of Education only requires school to have the federal formula built in. So if you use one, just keep in mind that it may only show you your federal eligibility. Providence's net price calculator not only has the required federal formula, but we also include our institutional need-based formula. So our calculator will tell you a lot. But remember, the estimated net price and financial aid you get through using one of these calculators is only as good as the information that you're entering. Okay, so I'm going to take a short break from talking and turn it back to Owen so he can talk a little bit more about our Merit Scholarship Program.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Emily. And yes, I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of the programs that Providence has, but also start by sharing just a little bit of information about merit-based scholarships in general that may be helpful for you to consider as you're comparing a number of different institutions. Before I get into this, I do just want to thank everyone for the questions that have been submitted. We already have a few that I've kind of queued up to ask Emily right after this and lean in on her expertise, but certainly feel free to submit others as well. When it comes to merit-based scholarships, there are a few things that can kind of vary from institution to institution, which I'll go over, and then I'll talk to you about how Providence handles these. The first is that the awarding does kind of vary by institution, and that can mean a number of different things. It can mean the amount, and it can also mean how much a school puts in merit-based scholarships. I'll share kind of the extent of our merit program in just a little bit, but I think what we have seen in the last 10 years or so is a number of schools have either increased or completely eliminated their merit program. And so while a student may be meritorious at one institution, and certainly that could be because of the applicant pool there and kind of where they stand academically, it could also be that the school just doesn't offer many merit-based scholarships. And that's why a student is receiving a scholarship at one school and not another. So the awarding is certainly something that can vary. The criteria for consideration can also vary. At Providence, I'll talk a bit about kind of what we use to award our merit-based scholarships, but there's a few kind of different types of scholarships that all fall under this merit kind of umbrella. The main one would be academic, looking at the student's performance, and that could include both the performance on their transcript as well as test scores or other academic criteria. But some schools may also choose to use leadership or to use kind of the engagement that a student has had in the admission process, to use any number of things to award the scholarships that they're giving with an offer of admission. So it's important to understand that the different schools on your list, kind of what are those things that the admission office or whoever it is that's awarding scholarships is going to be doing. It's also important to be aware of the details of an award that you receive and to make sure that it is something that you are considering about the course of your education. So is it a 4-year scholarship, or is it something that you just are being kind of awarded for that first year and then you have to reapply or remain in consideration for? And is it something that maybe is only going to remain if you kind of keep a certain major or based off your residency status? Definitely be sure to kind of read the fine print of what goes along with the scholarship that you may be given. I think it's also important to talk about kind of the role that merit-based scholarships play. And though we certainly recognize that they are a large part of the affordability conversation, at its core, merit-based scholarships are not something that have to do with financial aid eligibility or with helping a family kind of manage the costs. And we realize that for many, it's a key part of managing the costs and everything, but the consideration of the family contribution, as Emily was mentioning, is not something that typically comes into play with merit. Instead, it's largely focuses on where a student kind of falls in an applicant pool, where they are in relation to the the other applicants in that given year. And it's really meant to be more a tool of recognition rather than one of affordability, though certainly the awards that we offer often function in both ways, but I'm just kind of referencing the awarding process for them. Another thing is it's important to consider kind of outside scholarships or also scholarships within an institution that maybe are not awarded by the Office of Admission. So if there are scholarships that departments have the opportunity for you to apply for, or if maybe kind of a regional alumni group has a scholarship that you may be eligible for. All the different kind of opportunities that may be there that you aren't kind of considered for in the normal admission process, but are something you can pursue from the point of admission through May 1 and can certainly help with the bottom line cost of attendance. And so those are some things that I would kind of recommend kind of keeping in mind as you're asking questions of the various places to which you're thinking about applying. And I'll share a little bit of information about kind of how Providence works on these different topics. So for us, it is about 30% of admitted students who receive an offer of merit-based scholarship. There is no separate application for our merit-based scholarships. When a student submits their common application, they are automatically considered for any merit-based awards that they may qualify for. It's 30% of admitted students, and we do that by awarding them using purely academic criteria. So when we are making offers of scholarship, we are looking at the strength of the student's curriculum, the grades that they have received, the performance that they've done throughout high school. We do not consider the test scores that are submitted. And while in the admission process, we take a pretty holistic approach and look at their involvement, their leadership, kind of personal characteristics, all those things that you spend a lot of time putting towards kind of in your common application. When it comes to merit, it's a purely academic conversation, just looking at kind of how much you have challenged yourself and how you have performed. And so with those, there is no separate application, and you find out about the offer of scholarship with the offer of admission. So if you have received a merit-based scholarship, you will find out right in the portal on the day that you find out about your admission offer. When it comes to additional scholarship opportunities, there are several of them that exist at Providence. Most of what I'm talking about with the 30% number are our main academic merit scholarships. Those have no specific criteria except for being kind of an applicant to Providence. There are a number of others, but when it comes to these main scholarships, the ones that about 30% of admitted students receive, those range from about $22,000 to about $38,000 per year. So there are different levels within there and different kind of amounts that a student can receive. Those you're automatically considered for. For the additional ones, you may need to kind of do some additional steps to be considered for those. So examples of ones that exist at Providence are ones for certain majors, for our fine arts programs, certain science programs. We also have our multicultural scholarship program. We have athletic scholarships. Some alumni clubs have scholarships. In general, for any of these, you will either be notified after you're admitted that you qualify to apply for these scholarships, in which case we'll send you the additional information, or you'll find on your portal the opportunity to apply for it. And so there is not, while it's good to kind of be versed in what the opportunities are, you don't need to feel the need to kind of go scouring our website looking for different things that may be available to you from Providence. For the main merit scholarships, you're either going to automatically be considered and receive it with your offer of admission. And for all of the kind of special ones for majors and different things, it will either be right in front of you on your portal if you qualify for it, or after the time of admission, but before you need to enroll, we'll let you know about those. And so that's a little bit of an introduction kind of into the scholarship programs that exist at Providence. We certainly make quite a few offers and put approximately in the last year, we did award quite a few scholarships, but really the emphasis at Providence is on the need-based financial aid and helping with affordability. And so that's why we want to leave kind of the main kind of purpose of this webinar to deal with those issues. And certainly a number of questions have come in that we're happy to talk about. And so Emily, if you're ready, I can just kind of dive right in by asking you a few of them.
Do you want to touch base on the last slide first before questions about tips and advice? And then,
Sure,
or do you want to wait for questions
absolutely.
first?
Let's go for it. Let's leave with the tips and then we can go into questions.
All right, perfect. All right, tips first, advice, and then we'll get to all your Q&As. So first, don't rule out a school based on sticker price. You never know what you're going to qualify for. Higher price schools do tend to offer larger awards, resulting in a lower net price than some of your state schools. Make sure you fully understand the difference between need-based aid and merit-based aid. It is really important to know if the money you're being offered is guaranteed for 4 years or if it can change when your family's finances change. Make sure you double check with your school if it's not clear to you on your award letter. No two schools are ever the same. Make sure you know what applications are required for that school and make sure you know when they are due for that school. Do not assume something you know about one school is going to apply to another school. You can prepare some important information right now. Hang on to those 2022 taxes and put them in a place you will remember. Apply for the FSA ID right now and make sure you keep track of the username and password for the College Board. Don't be late. Just don't be late. Late applications could mean losing out on thousands of dollars of financial aid. The admission process and the financial aid process are concurrent. If you wait to apply for financial aid until you know whether or not you are admitted, your applications again will be late. And last but not least, involve your student. I don't expect a student to go through this alone, but they need to be part of the process. When they come to campus and we need something, we are going to reach out to them. Most colleges will stop communicating with parents once a student enrolls. So make sure that they are involved and tell them not to delete emails from our office. All right, so that's what I have. Owen, do you want to now jump into what sounds like a lot of questions and answers?
Yeah, absolutely. And the questions, many of them follow kind of similar themes, so I'll try and combine some for you. I think a good one to start with references how you mentioned that the applications will look at information from the 2022 year. And what recommendations do you have if a family expects their household income to have significantly changed since that time?
That's a great question. So for the FAFSA and the CSS profile, we're required to use the base year for 2022 no matter what. So we have to have your information delivered based on the actual tax returns, but we then do have processes in place that families can use to communicate to us any changes that may have happened since completing their applications, or they're just wildly different from your actual base year of 2022. We fully understand that as you are entering college, it's going to be 2024, and 2022 may not be a good representation anymore of your ability to pay. We will certainly entertain that additional information, and we will have, at least Providence will, appeal forms that are up on our website that you can use, and it will help guide you to best communicate those changes to us after you do the initial applications.
Excellent. We can kind of alternate if you want. There is another question about how you create a PC portal. And I can share that it's approximately 2 to 3 days after you submit your common application that you can expect to receive an email from the Office of Admission that includes the link to the admission status portal, as well as the username and password that you would use to access that. It's within that portal that you can check on your admission application. And then also in early November, we'll begin to load in all of the need-based financial aid information. And so you can see if your FAFSA and profile have been received, as well as see if any additional requirements have been posted there, or if there's other items that maybe the financial aid staff is waiting for you to submit. The one thing I will kind of add with that is that it is not a live portal. The moment you press send on FAFSA, it does not instantly go into there. In fact, it takes them quite a few days to get it to us, another day or so for us to link it all together. And so you won't expect to kind of have a live look at what's there, but certainly at least weekly it's updated so you have an idea of what we may be looking for. Speaking of materials that we may be looking for, Emily, a question was asked. Sorry, I'm looking for it. Can you clarify, are all families required to send personal documents, tax returns, W-2s, after they submit the FAFSA and profile?
No, we do not require families to send their personal tax information in order to be considered initially for any of our need-based aid. The requirements, again, FAFSA is delayed, but for our early populations, we'll be looking at your business tax return and your CSS profile. That will be used to make something called an estimated or a tentative award. Later in the process, when you are able to do your FAFSA, then we will also ask you to submit your personal tax returns, and then we will finalize your offer that we were provided to you earlier in the cycle. So if families want to send them in earlier and just want them to have us have it on file, well, the more information, the better it is for us. But if you're not sure you want to send them in and you want to wait until they're officially requested, by all means, that's okay with us too.
All right. I know I said we're going to alternate, but I'm just going to give you another question. If a student does not have a sibling in college when they are entering as a first-year student, but they will as a sophomore, junior, and senior, will that be recalculated after that first year?
That's another great question, because generically speaking, we are going to recalculate a family's institutional contribution every year, no matter what. So FAFSA and profile, while they're due earlier for now, for our returning students, it's due on tax day, April 15th, every single year. That FAFSA and profile will have to come back in. And if there are changes on those applications, income changes, changes to your home, or changes to the number of students in your household that are now attending undergraduate, then absolutely, that will continue to change as long in your second or third year, if that's when the student in your younger sibling enters into the college process.
Excellent. There is another question asking if Providence College is truly need blind, and I can share a little bit of background. Need blind is a term that's commonly used for institutions that do not consider a student's ability to manage the costs of that education when making their admission decision. And so I can tell you that for domestic students, those who are living in the United States and do not require a visa to study at Providence College, we are need blind. Emily mentioned in the beginning how these two processes, they run at the same exact time. You should not wait until you receive an offer of admission to begin thinking about applying for aid. But my staff cannot see anything or wouldn't even want to consider anything until that admission decision is made and until the packages are developed. And then certainly in the spring, we'll continue to work with you. So yes, for domestic students, we are need blind. We do not consider whether you have the resources or not to manage the costs of Providence. For international students, we are need aware. And so we will consider the ability of a student to contribute if they require a visa to study at Providence. That does not mean that you need to be able to pay the full cost of attendance. We do have limited need-based financial aid that's available to international students, but they must be able to demonstrate the ability to cover the costs related to housing and food. So roughly approximately $25,000 per year will make them eligible to be considered for additional grant-based international assistance beyond that amount. All right. Emily, we're going back to you. There are quite a few questions on this topic. And for the application rounds that are a little bit earlier, so early decision and early action, how will we be able to kind of provide them with aid packages if the FAFSA is not going to be available until after those deadlines?
Sure. So for our early process here, in light of the FAFSA being delayed due to FAFSA simplification, we are going to make early offers just based on the information you're providing to us on your CSS profile, because that is an application that's already open and you can complete definitely by our deadlines. Again, if you're a business owner, whether it's a sole proprietor or a partnership, we'll also need that as well. So CSS profile, and if you're a business owner, just those business taxes, we will use just that information. Now, because the CSS profile doesn't utilize like the direct data exchange like the FAFSA, we're relying on you to accurately enter your information into the profile. So if you're nervous about that or feel like you've made a mistake and you want to proactively send us your tax returns to have on file when we're doing that initial review, again, by all means, I'll never say no to a family who wants to give me their tax returns.
Great, thank you. We have some general kind of statistics questions. One that asks, how many students receive financial assistance at Providence? And do I know how many students will be admitted for 2024? I know the answer to both of those things. So it is about 81% of students at Providence are receiving some form of financial assistance. So that could be either need-based financial aid or merit-based scholarships. Our average need-based financial aid package is approximately $37,000 per year. And so that is made up of institutional grants as well as loan and possibly federal work study if the student does qualify for it. The average merit-based scholarship would be roughly around about $32,000 per year. As far as the admission kind of process for this year and how many students will be admitted, we are looking to enroll a class of about 1,250 students to start in fall of 2024. We aren't sure kind of what the acceptance rate will be as many of our application, actually all of our application deadlines are still in the future. But we expect to receive roughly a similar number of applications to last year, and our overall acceptance rate was approximately 48%. All right. Emily, is there a difference in the amount of financial aid that a student would receive if they applied regular decision versus early decision?
No. Nope.
Excellent. So we use the same kind of packaging methodology and everything for all of those, all of the different rounds. And so the aid package that a student would receive at early decision is the same as it would at regular. And I can share that it's the same when it comes to merit-based scholarship. Students are considered in the context of approximately 13,000 applications. They aren't necessarily allocated for a certain round. We do not have a cap on the number of scholarships we're going to give at early action. We don't have a floor on the number that we're going to give at regular decision. And so really it depends on kind of how you look in the applicant pool across all of the different rounds. Yeah, all right. Regarding business tax documents, would you mind sharing a little bit more about what you mean by that? And are you referring to the Schedule C that one files with their personal tax forms?
Sure. So a Schedule C, which is tucked into a family's personal tax return, is usually represented or called a sole proprietorship, which means single owner business. Now, I've seen single owner businesses, like I said earlier, that are Uber drivers or soccer referees on weekends. I've seen dentists as single owner businesses. How you choose and what business tax return you use is between you and your, financial advisor. But the Schedule Cs, again, are in your personal tax return, but your 1065, which are partnerships, and 1120Ss, which are corporations, typically families will get a K1 that represents that, it's kind of like a highlight of their income and their distributions and their percentage of ownership. And then the expansion behind the K1 is all the pages of the business tax return. In general, we're looking for the first page. In your Schedule L, we're looking at your balance sheet so we can assess the value of your business. So sometimes families don't want to send all the pages because it has personal information for other partners. That's okay. You can remove those. You can blank out Social Security numbers. We obviously want to be very respectful of that information. But yes, you could find your business tax returns in your personal return if you're a sole proprietor. But then again, you could also have partnership or 1065, again, depending on the nature of the business, kind of depends on what we're looking for.
Great. There's another question about outside scholarships and the impact that it may have on a student's financial aid package. So if you were to receive an outside scholarship, $1,000 from a local organization, would that reduce the amount of aid that Providence has awarded you?
Sure. So maybe. It depends on what your determined financial need is, and it depends on how large that outside scholarship is. I would say in general, a scholarship between $1,000 to $2,000 to $3,000 is probably not going to impact any resources that we provided to you. But if you have an employer benefit that's $10, $15, $30,000, that could impact the aid we've already offered to you. In general, when we get an outside scholarship, we first look to see and apply it against any unmet need or that gap that we were not able to fulfill with our own resources. So if that small scholarship or medium scholarship fits in that gap and that unmet need, then nothing will change. But the larger that is and the larger need it covers, then we're going to look at other resources that we may have to move around. And we will always look to reduce funds that are least beneficial to you first. So we would take away loans, we would take away your work opportunity before we would ever consider touching any of your need-based eligibility.
Excellent. All right, we're going to stick with you because you are far more popular than I am. And there's a few questions around this topic. So I'll read the question, but if you could kind of address the topic a little more generally. Just to clarify, if my child only lives with me and I am her custodial parent, does the other parent's financial information need to be submitted?
Okay. Providence does not collect non-custodial information when determining a family's eligibility. Now, I will say that the definition of custodial parent for the 24-25 academic year has changed. So the custodial parent or the parent of record is now the parent that contributes most of the student support in the preceding 12 months. So that definition has tweaked a little bit. So if you are the custodial parent and that student lives with you and you provide the majority of the support in the 12 months preceding the date that you do the FAFSA application, then it's just your information.
Excellent. Thank you so much. A really good question that maybe we've talked on before, but could be helpful to reinforce is, can I go and fill out the FAFSA right now? And if not, why not?
Okay, so there is a FAFSA application available right now, but it is for the wrong academic year. The FAFSA application, or I would say the world of financial aid, we live in 2 years at the same time. So if you go out to FAFSA.gov right now, you may be tempted and say, oh, the FAFSA is available. But I promise you, it's for the current academic year that we're in, and that's not the year that you guys are interested in starting in. So FAFSA, again, is delayed to a date in December. We have no idea quite yet. We're hoping it's December 1st and not December 31st, but we're not really sure yet. We don't have an update from the Department of Education, but you can check our website or our social media accounts. We will certainly push that information out the minute we know. I promise. We want to know just as much as you want to know.
Excellent. I talked a little bit about kind of how long it takes for items to be reflected in the portal, but a little bit more kind of specificity has been requested to find out how many days before should you submit these forms, the CSS profile and the FAFSA, to ensure that they are received on time.
That's a really good question. I'm kind of a planner, so I probably would say 7 to 10 days ahead of time at least. I want to make sure that you have enough time, or sometimes you might stop and have a question, need to call the school. You want to build in that time, especially if you're unsure before you submit. So I would say if you could complete the application at least 7 to 10 days before our due date, that would be very, very helpful. Get your questions answered and give us enough time for CSS or FAFSA to process it, have our side of the house process it, and then be able to publish that in the admission status portal so you guys can see that pretty green check mark.
Excellent. And the other thing I would mention is that while we've had a number of people asking kind of what those early deadlines are, those, because we are not using them for the admission process and for the decision, you can still receive your admission decision even if you aren't able to meet the CSS profile deadlines that are established for early. We would recommend doing it, and even if you miss it by a couple days, still get it in as soon as you're able, because we want to provide you with an aid package. But the ultimate deadline would be the regular decision one. So if maybe you're still working through your finances or you're just not ready to apply yet, you can wait until that final regular decision deadline, even if you were a student who applied early action. A few kind of quick questions that we have. Do we only look at GPAs, or do we do SAT and ACT scores when considering merit? We don't just look at GPAs, we're also looking at the strength of curriculum that a student has taken, but you are correct. that it is only the high school performance that shows up in the transcript that is considered for merit-based scholarships at Providence. Emily, we have a question kind of about the different ways that these supplementary forms can be submitted. Would you mind kind of just reminding folks about the possibly forthcoming portal, but as
sure.
of right now, what are the options that they have?
Sure. So yes, we are currently working on our own secure portal. Just like FAFSA, I do not have a date for when that's going to go live yet, but again, we will push that information out. I would say at this point in time that you can send the information in the way that makes you feel most comfortable. If you want to fax it, by all means. You want to email it, password protect it, encrypt it, put it in snail mail, overnight it, that's fine. We will take the information again in the way that makes you feel most comfortable sending along that sensitive information to us.
Excellent. And then just a few kind of final notes to close out. There were a few questions asking whether the information we were sharing can be applied at all institutions. And while certainly some of the things that Emily was talking about are broader and apply to financial aid everywhere, the advice that we were sharing was kind of how to best position yourself within Providence College's process. And so deadlines may be different elsewhere. The requirements of forms may be different. Kind of even what is being considered will vary from institution to institution. And so certainly what we've shared tonight has kind of introduced you to the world of financial aid, but it is kind of through the Providence College lens. And so we would definitely recommend looking at what other places would receive. The final piece, which we've been asked quite a few times, is about kind of when you find out about both admission as well as financial aid and scholarship. And so for admission, early decision will be released around December 1st, and those students will receive their financial aid package right in with their admission decision. Early action will be released by the end of December, and students can expect to receive a financial aid package if they completed the process on time by around February 1st. Early decision 2, which is a January 15th deadline, will be released by March 1st. The financial aid package will be included with that. And regular decision, which is the January 15th admission deadline, you could expect to receive your need-based financial aid package along with the offer of admission. For all 4 of those rounds, merit-based scholarships would be included in the portal when you find out about the admission process. All right. The final question, which we've been asked quite a bit, apparently people want to rewind and watch this all over again, but this session has been recorded and will be emailed out to anyone who registered for it. It will also be posted on the Office of Admissions YouTube playlist in the next several days. And so certainly feel free to let us know if you have questions after that. All of our staff definitely kind of pride ourselves on the counseling side of this. Within the Office of Financial Aid, they tend to work on kind of a counselor on duty model where you can call their main number and connect with whoever is available that day to guide you through. In the Office of Admission, we use a territory model where based off your high school, you can find on the portal or on our website who that staff member is who is responsible for answering your questions about the admission process or scholarships. For now, though, I just want to thank you for joining us this evening. Emily, thank you as well for lending your expertise. Even though I've been doing this quite a while, I feel like I still kind of learn things every time we host this, so I appreciate that. And if you have any kind of final parting words as well, feel free.
No, I just wanted to say thank you for joining us. I know that an hour of your time is precious, and I hope everything that we delivered today is helpful. And just like Owen said, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to our staff at any time.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great evening. Good night.
Good night.